At dawn, fog rolled across a vast military base. The air was thick and cold, carrying the rhythmic thump of boots striking the ground in perfect unison. Hundreds of soldiers trained under the rising sun, their movements sharp and disciplined. Above them, the American flag climbed slowly into the morning sky, a symbol of the dedication unfolding below. Some stories are loud. They're filled with the sounds of medals and applause celebrated in ceremonies and remembered in history books. But other stories live quietly. They exist in the shadows, unseen and unheard, until the moment they can no longer stay hidden. This is one of those stories. His name was Ethan Cole, an administrative clerk stationed at Fort Bragg. On paper, he was utterly ordinary. His uniform was always perfectly pressed, his hair cut to regulation, but there was nothing about him that drew a second glance. He was just another face in the crowd. While other soldiers ran drills, hauled heavy packs through mud, and fired weapons on the range, Ethan sat behind a desk. His world was one of reports, supply logs, and endless stacks of paperwork. Most soldiers, caught up in the rigors of their own training, barely noticed he was there. They had their jokes, of course. Some called him the librarian, others the office boy. A few sergeants with a smirk had even dubbed him Sergeant Stapler. The names followed him through the mess hall and down the corridors, whispered just loud enough for him to hear. But Ethan never reacted. He simply offered a polite nod and continued on his way, his expression unchanging. Every evening, when the day's duties were done, he would return to his small, quiet room in the barracks. It was a sparse space, organized with methodical precision. He read alone, ate alone, and went to sleep unnoticed. His life was a study in solitude. No one knew the person he was beyond the paperwork. No one knew the truth he carried, a weight heavier than any rucksack. That truth stayed buried, hidden deep beneath layers of routine and silence, until the day of the Iron Valor Drill. This wasn't just another training exercise, it was a legend, one of the toughest tests in the entire military, a trial designed to find the breaking point of even the most elite soldiers and push them past it. This year, the Iron Valor Drill was being overseen by General Marcus Hale. He was a commander whose reputation preceded him, a man feared and respected across every branch of the armed forces. General Hale was forged in the old school of military discipline, a leader who accepted nothing less than absolute, uncompromising excellence. Standing before hundreds of assembled troops, his voice boomed across the training ground, cutting through the tense morning air. "Today," he declared, his eyes scanning the formation, "we separate the warriors from the pretenders." The tension was immediate, a palpable current running through the ranks. Then he did something unexpected. He needs a volunteer, someone willing to challenge the drill sergeant in a full run of the course. Silence fell across the formation. The only sound was the wind whistling past the obstacles. All eyes instinctively turned to one man, Sergeant Blake, a legend in his own right, known for his brute strength, explosive temper, and an unbroken record of dominance in every physical competition. He was a mountain of a man, and no one had ever beaten him. No one stepped forward. The challenge hung in the air, a dare that no one was willing to accept. No one, that is, except Ethan Cole, the quiet clerk standing in the back, almost invisible. He took one step forward, his voice calm but clear. "Permission to volunteer, sir." A wave of whispers spread through the ranks like fire. A few soldiers muffled laughs. They thought it was a joke. Sergeant Blake himself cracked a contemptuous smile. The general turned his piercing gaze toward the back of the formation, his eyes narrowing as he located the source of the voice. He studied Ethan for a long, silent moment. "You?" he asked, his tone a mix of disbelief and curiosity. Ethan's posture didn't change. He stood straight, his gaze unwavering. "Yes, sir." The whistle blew, and the challenge began. Blake attacked the obstacle course with pure, explosive force. He roared as he vaulted over walls and smashed through barriers, a whirlwind of aggression. But Ethan moved with a different kind of energy. He was fluid, precise, and controlled. Blake powered through the obstacles, leaving a trail of splintered wood and scattered debris. But Ethan flowed through them. He didn't fight the course, he became part of it. Where Blake used muscle, Ethan used momentum. By the halfway point, the impossible had happened. The distance between them had closed. At the final towering wall, Blake launched himself over, landing hard on the other side with a stumble that broke his rhythm. A moment later, Ethan landed beside him, perfectly balanced, steady, and calm. The entire field fell silent. Next came the endurance drills, push-ups, pull-ups, squats, one after another, under the relentless sun. Blake pushed himself forward, fueled by raw anger and humiliation. His face was a mask of rage, sweat pouring down his temples. Ethan moved without emotion. His form remained perfect, his breathing controlled and even. He was a machine, each repetition identical to the last. The whispers among the soldiers grew louder, turning from mockery to awe. Finally, Blake's muscles gave out. He collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. Ethan remained standing, looking as if he could go on for hours. Then came the final test, hand-to-hand combat. Enraged, Blake charged like a wounded bull, throwing a wild, powerful punch meant to end the fight instantly. Ethan didn't flinch. He waited. One mistake, that was all it took. In a single fluid motion, Ethan sidestepped the attack, redirected Blake's momentum, and used his own force against him. He slammed the massive sergeant to the ground with a resounding thud. The fight was over before it truly began. A profound silence covered the training ground. Sergeant Blake lay on the ground, stunned and defeated. The soldiers stood frozen, unable to process what they had just witnessed. No one spoke. General Hale stepped forward, walking slowly until he stood directly in front of Ethan. He looked at the quiet clerk, but he wasn't seeing a clerk anymore. "You're no clerk," he said, his voice low and certain. Ethan met his gaze, and for the first time, a flicker of the past showed in his eyes. "Sir," Ethan replied, his voice just as quiet. "Once I was more." In the hours and days that followed, the truth spread like wildfire. Ethan Cole had once served in the most elite special forces units. He had fought in missions and places that were never spoken of, operations that existed only in redacted files. He had lost brothers in arms, seen the true cost of conflict, and had chosen a life of silence over a chest full of medals. From that day on, Ethan Cole was never invisible again. The whispers that followed him were no longer of mockery, but of respect. Not because he had won a fight, but because he had reminded everyone what strength truly is. Strength isn't always loud. It doesn't always demand attention or seek the spotlight. Sometimes the greatest strength is the one that waits quietly, content to be unseen. It waits for the moment it's needed most. It waits for the right reason, the right time to reveal itself. Ethan Cole was never just a clerk. He was a warrior in silence. And sometimes, silence is the loudest and most powerful force of all. If this story moved you, don't just scroll away. Like this video, share your thoughts on what true strength means in the comments below, and subscribe for more stories that matter. Because the quietest heroes often carry the greatest legacies. Thanks for watching.